In the fading light of a quiet suburban dusk, Jamal eased his car into the driveway, exhaustion etched into his features after another grueling shift at the hospital. As a skilled surgeon, he had spent the day mending broken bodies, but nothing prepared him for the fracture awaiting him at home. The house stood as a beacon of his achievements, a spacious colonial in a leafy neighborhood shared with his aging mother, Aisha, and his wife, Emily. Yet, as he neared the entrance, an eerie quietude enveloped the air, pierced only by the subtle clatter of utensils from within the kitchen. Peering through the partially drawn curtains, Jamal's breath caught in his throat. There was Emily, her posture rigid and deliberate, gloved hands meticulously measuring a powdery substance, from a concealed vial into a bowl of hearty soup. Her eyes darted furtively, ensuring solitude, before she stirred the mixture with a spoon that gleamed under the fluorescent lights. Across the table, Aisha sat in her wheelchair, her frail form unsuspecting, absorbed in the soft hum of the television, reporting distant news. In that heart-stopping instant, Jamal's world tilted. His wife, the partner he cherished, was poisoning his mother. This wasn't mere accident or misunderstanding. It was a calculated strike, steeped in the venom of racial animosity that had insidiously woven into their interracial union. Bursting through the door with a cry of disbelief, Jamal sent the bowl crashing to the floor, its contents spreading, like an accusation. The confrontation that followed would peel back layers of deceit, revealing how racism's insidious roots can twist even the bonds of marriage into something deadly. What hidden resentments had festered to birth this horror? How could love curdle into such hatred? The unraveling would not only shatter a family but illuminate the pervasive shadows of prejudice lurking in everyday lives, urging us to confront the uncomfortable truths that divide us. Aisha's life had been a tapestry woven from threads of perseverance and quiet defiance. Raised in the segregated South during the tumultuous 1960s, she navigated a world where her black skin marked her as lesser in the eyes of many. Schools were divided, water fountains labeled, and opportunities rationed based on color. Despite this, Aisha excelled, becoming a teacher who ignited minds in underfunded classrooms, teaching history not as dates but as lived battles for dignity. Her husband, Jamal's father, left early, unable to shoulder the weight of societal scorn on their mixed dreams, leaving Aisha to raise their son alone. She worked multiple jobs, cleaning offices by night, educating by day, instilling in Jamal the mantra that knowledge was armor against ignorance. Her efforts bore fruit. Jamal soared through scholarships, medical school, and into a prestigious surgical residency, his success a direct rebuttal to the doubts cast upon them. When Aisha's stroke struck like a thief in the night, robbing her of easy mobility and confining her to a wheelchair, Jamal insisted she move in with him. The home he purchased in an affluent, mostly white suburb symbolized his triumph. A place of comfort with wide hallways for her chair, a garden she could tend from her seat, and rooms filled with echoes of their shared history. Photos of civil rights marches adorned the walls, alongside Jamal's diplomas, blending past struggles with present victories. Emily entered this world like a fresh breeze. Met at a medical gala, she was a marketing executive from a well-to-do white family, drawn to Jamal's charisma and drive. Their courtship was whirlwind. Dates in art galleries discussing social issues, weekends exploring cultural festivals. Emily spoke passionately about equality, sharing books on allyship, and seemed genuinely fond of Aisha's tales of resilience. The wedding was a fusion of traditions, kente cloth draping the altar, hymns mingling with gospel, attended by friends who toasted to breaking barriers. Post-honeymoon, harmony reigned initially. Emily assisted with Aisha's routines, helping her dress, preparing nutritious meals infused with herbs from Aisha's recipes, even joining in evening prayers that honored ancestors. Jamal, frequently called away for surgeries that saved lives, from car wrecks or sudden illnesses, felt secure in this arrangement. But subtle dissonances emerged, like faint cracks in fine china. Emily's parents visited sparingly, their conversations laced with veiled concerns about fitting in or grandchildren's heritage. Emily dismissed it as generational gaps, but Aisha, with her lifetime of reading between lines, detected the undercurrents. Emily's compliments on Aisha's exotic cooking carried a patronizing edge, her suggestions to redecorate removed African art pieces deeming them cluttered. Aisha bore it quietly, recalling her own mother's advice. "Choose your battles, child." Yet, as time wore on, Emily's facade thinned. Alone with Aisha, her tone sharpened. Comments on welfare stereotypes slipped out during news segments on inequality. Jamal remained oblivious, attributing any tension to adjustment pains. The stage was meticulously set, a devoted son bridging two worlds, a mother embodying enduring grace and a wife harboring prejudices inherited and internalized, simmering toward a boil. Small escalations built intrigue, Aisha's cherished quilt from her grandmother vanishing, replaced by something more modern. Medications delayed, causing unnecessary discomfort. What invisible forces were aligning to transform subtle bias into overt danger? The curiosity mounted, drawing us deeper into the web of familial deceit colored by racial divides. The household's atmosphere grew heavier with each passing week, like a gathering storm over tranquil waters. Aisha, increasingly isolated in her wheelchair-bound existence, observed Emily's shifts with a mix of sorrow and vigilance. Mornings that once began with shared coffee now featured Emily slamming cabinets, muttering about extra burdens under her breath. One particularly humid afternoon, while Jamal operated on a trauma patient miles away, Emily confined Aisha to the sunroom, claiming fresh air would help, but locking the door behind her. Hours ticked by under the relentless sun, Aisha's calls ignored as Emily lounged in air-conditioned comfort, browsing catalogs for upgrades to the home that subtly erased cultural touches. Emily's microaggressions evolved into deliberate acts of neglect. She began skimping on Aisha's prescribed diet, serving bland, oversalted meals that aggravated her hypertension, dismissing complaints with, "You're used to spicier things from your background." Aisha's stomach churned not just from the food, but from the implied othering. Drawing on memories of sit-ins and boycotts from her youth, Aisha started keeping a mental tally, her spirit unbroken but weary. Evenings brought psychological barbs. Emily would cue documentaries on urban decay, commenting loudly on how some communities just can't help themselves, her gaze flicking to Aisha as if assigning blame. The older woman recognized these tactics, echoes of the gaslighting she faced in white-dominated workplaces decades ago, where her ideas were stolen and her presence tolerated at best. As resentment festered, Emily's isolation tactics intensified. She canceled Aisha's therapy appointments, citing scheduling conflicts, leaving Aisha's muscles to stiffen without intervention. One night, after a heated argument over a misplaced family heirloom, a carved wooden mask symbolizing protection, Emily roughly maneuvered Aisha's wheelchair into a corner, bruising her leg against furniture. "You don't appreciate what we have here," Emily hissed, her voice low but venomous. Aisha's pain was twofold, physical from the impact, emotional from the betrayal. She thought of her ancestors' endurance through slavery and segregation, channeling that fortitude to endure, but the toll mounted. Sleepless nights, weight loss, a persistent cough from stress. Jamal's suspicions stirred slowly, like embers in dry tinder. Returning unexpectedly one evening, he found Aisha alone in dim light, her dinner untouched and cold. "Emily said she had errands," Aisha explained softly, her eyes avoiding his. He noticed the bruises, the fatigue lines deeper on her face. At work, colleagues shared stories of elder abuse, planting seeds of doubt. Emily, sensing his growing wariness, doubled down on affection toward him, while her treatment of Aisha worsened in private. She delved into dark online forums, absorbing rhetoric that framed interracial dynamics as imbalances, fueling her delusion that Aisha's presence threatened their pure future. Secretly, she acquired the poison, arsenic disguised as a gardening supplement, testing small doses on plants to gauge potency, her mind rationalizing it as mercy for an outdated life. The emotional stakes soared as family gatherings exposed fractures. During a rare visit from Emily's relatives, Aisha was sidelined, conversation steering away from her input, with sidelong glances and whispered jokes about diversity hires. Aisha retreated inwardly, journaling furtively on her phone. Entries, chronicling the slights, the threats veiled as concern. One entry detailed Emily's late-night rant, "Your kind always plays the victim card." The injustice crystallized. This wasn't mere dislike, but systemic racism manifesting domestically, where Aisha's black identity was weaponized against her. Tensions escalated during a weekend storm, power flickering as Emily prepared a special tea, her hands steady despite inner turmoil. Aisha, sensing peril, spilled it deliberately, earning a slap that echoed through the empty house. Bruised, but resolute, she whispered prayers for strength. Jamal, reviewing patient files at home, overheard fragments, his heart pounding. He discreetly placed a nanny cam in the living room, capturing Emily's monologues of hate. Racial slurs muttered. While cleaning, plans murmured to herself. The rising action crested with revelations. Emily's browser history revealed searches for undetectable poisons and forums decrying mixed families. Aisha confided partially in a phone call to an old friend, who urged action, but loyalty to Jamal stayed her hand. The air crackled with impending doom, each day unveiling deeper layers of prejudice, how it poisons minds, erodes trust, and turns homes into battlegrounds. Jamal's internal conflict raged: defend his mother, the root of his being, or salvage. His marriage, now revealed as a facade. The build-up to confrontation was inexorable, a poignant exploration of how racial injustice infiltrates intimacy, demanding vigilance from all. Under the oppressive weight of a thunderstorm that mirrored the chaos within, the inevitable eruption unfolded. Jamal, pretending to head to an overnight conference, instead hid in a nearby cafe, monitoring the home via his installed cameras on his laptop. Inside, Emily's movements were methodical, her face a canvas of cold determination. Aisha, positioned at the dining table in her wheelchair, eyed the steaming bowl of stew warily, the aroma masking something acrid beneath. Emily coaxed with feigned sweetness, "Eat up, it's full of nutrients for your condition." As Aisha delayed, lifting the spoon slowly, Emily's composure cracked. She retrieved the vial from a hidden drawer, adding a generous dose, stirring vigorously. While glancing at the clock, Jamal's supposed absence her shield. The camera recorded every damning detail, the label reading "rat poison," the malicious glint in her eyes as she envisioned freedom from what she deemed an intrusion. Aisha, her instincts honed by a lifetime of survival, knocked the bowl aside. With a trembling arm, the toxic stew splashing across the floor and onto Emily's shoes. Fury ignited. Emily grabbed Aisha by the shoulders, shaking her violently. "You ungrateful wretch! You and your people ruin everything." The slurs poured forth, a torrent of pent-up racism unleashed in the heat of the moment. Jamal stormed in, rain-soaked and roaring, "Stop!" The scene halted abruptly. Emily, frozen in aggression, Aisha slumped but defiant, the evidence irrefutable, on the slick tiles. Confrontation exploded. Jamal demanded explanations, Emily sputtering lies about helping with pain relief. But the live feed on his phone, replaying the poisoning, dismantled her defenses. He dialed emergency services, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands as police sirens wailed in approach. Emily resisted, clawing at him, her pleas devolving into accusations of reverse discrimination. Officers arrived, assessing the scene, collecting the vial and spilled contents for testing. In the whirlwind of flashing lights and statements, the core truth blasted open. Emily's deep-seated racism had propelled her to attempted homicide, perceiving Aisha's race as an existential threat to her worldview. Jamal held his mother close, shielding her from the storm, both literal and metaphorical, as the climax laid bare the devastating intersection of love, betrayal, and bigotry. With the storm's passing came a fragile dawn of reckoning and renewal. Emily's apprehension dominated local news cycles, her trial a public dissection of hidden prejudices. Evidence mounted. The journal Aisha had secretly maintained, detailing months of abuse. Digital footprints tracing Emily's descent into hate-filled. Online echo chambers. Witness testimonies from neighbors who overheard racial tirades. Convicted on charges of attempted murder enhanced by hate crime statutes, Emily received a 15-year sentence. Her once polished life reduced to prison bars, a cautionary tale of unchecked bias. Jamal navigated the emotional wreckage with therapy and support from colleagues, ultimately dissolving the marriage that had been built on illusions. He sold the house, tainted by memories, and relocated with Aisha to a vibrant multicultural neighborhood where community centers buzzed with stories like theirs. Aisha, under improved care, regained some strength through specialized rehab, her wheelchair no longer a prison but a chariot for advocacy. She spoke at local events, sharing her ordeal to educate on elder abuse intertwined with racism, her voice steady and inspiring crowds to examine their own biases. Jamal transformed personally and professionally, integrating cultural sensitivity, training into his hospital's protocols and volunteering at clinics serving underserved Black communities. Their mother-son bond, already strong, became unbreakable. Nights spent reminiscing over old photos, planning trips to historical sites, like Selma, honoring the legacy of resistance. Friends and extended family rallied, offering the support that had been absent before, fostering a network of solidarity. This narrative, drawn from amalgamated true stories of interracial strife and domestic racial violence, illuminates how prejudice doesn't always march in the streets but creeps into hearths and hearts, eroding from within. It highlights the resilience of those who faced discrimination across generations, turning pain into purpose. Yet, it poses a vital query. In our own circles, do we ignore the subtle signs of bias, allowing them to metastasize? Or do we actively dismantle them, fostering environments where diversity thrives without threat? Imagine a world where such vigilance prevents tragedy. What role will you play? Engage below with your reflections. Together, we can amplify voices against hate and build bridges over divides.